Welcome. This is Astrology Insight Now, a weekly forecast program with astrology and other ways to help you make the most of your week and to heighten confidence for daily life. It's run by Pamela Cuccinell, that's me, the astrologer, and I invite you to find out more about my work at insightoasis.com. I look forward to your joining us every week. Please share with your friends, and here we go. So I know many of you like to know when Mercury goes retrograde, and it does today, November 25th at 9:42 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's the times I give throughout this forecast predictions, so you'll need to adjust if you're somewhere else on the planet, as am I, actually. But on November 25th, the moon opens the day in the sign of Virgo. It goes void of course at 12:35 a.m. And when the moon is void of course, it's best not to start anything new. It's best to recharge, purge, clear your desk, work on things already in motion. Avoid initiating something, new relationships, contracts, things that you want to have legs to go the distance. However, it can be a creative time. It's just that if it's something you know you want to revisit, hold on to, jot it down, schedule in your mind another time to engage in the conversation and open it up again, and ideally have a conversation with more texture and follow through than it would have at this point in time when the moon's void of course. Fortunately, the moon enters the next sign, Libra, at 6:20 a.m. And for many of you, certainly Eastern Standard Time people, your day is just beginning. And with the moon in Libra, the next couple of days are what I would call good days. We do have to keep in mind that Mercury is going retrograde, will be retrograde for the next couple of weeks. And we're also in the waning moon cycle, which means the new moon will happen when I speak about that on Sunday. But right now we're in this period that is really supported to wrap things up, slough off anything you don't want to bring into the next lunar cycle, and kind of clear your head or be decisive about what you don't want to carry with you going forward in the next lunar cycle. So what that means is some things, obviously, we are working on continually. Life things, maintenance, routines, but also we might be on a long-term project. So those projects, obviously, we're not necessarily finishing up at this point in time, but we may be wrapping up a certain leg of it or putting an emphasis or attention on a piece of it that really we want to unfold in a certain way. So the waning moon cycle can be very constructive with this kind of energy. In the sign of Libra, it speaks very well on anything that needs to be discussed, litigated, mitigated, compromise, discussion. All these things are very well supported during this point in time. And with the Mercury retrograde, we will be going over things we thought we had already said. So it's really terrific for if you're writing something, editing that, looking at it with fresh eyes, new perspective, and this keen sense of editing. Retrogrades are always good to go over something. And I'm just struck by oh my gosh, so long ago. I was at a event with an old colleague, Michael Luton, great man who recently died, an astrologer. And we were discussing tarot cards. And tarot actually I came to before astrology. So we were talking about when a tarot card is reversed. And Michael, being the insightful person he is, he said, does the overturned card, the reverse card, is it similar to a retrograde in astrology, in planetary language? And I was very struck by that and talked to him about it, because I thought that is a very interesting spin on, we're talking a long time ago. So the traditional way that I had learned tarot, and to dovetail it with that way of thinking, was one of the moments of brilliance that was not unusual for Michael. So anyway, why I bring this up now is it was a Libran conversation. We were at a party, and we were having actually kind of in-depth conversation at a light conversation event. Not unusual when colleagues get together and have discussions, but that's the kind of magic that is often overlooked when Mercury is retrograde, because in our very solar-oriented society where the lights are always on, we're always busy, and it's 24/7, and we're trying to do things so quickly, we forget that the real juice and magic in intense conversation and communication often comes through reflection. And so that's the RE in the retrograde with Mercury, the planet of communication. Remember, Mercury was the god who was the psychopomp. He was able to move between all three levels, planes of existence, the underworld, the earth plane, and the heavens. Very few entities, gods, enjoyed that kind of fluidity, but Mercury did. So in retrograde, it's symbolizing more of the underworld, pulling out things from the unconscious, the subconscious realms, and also celestial, the connections with the heavens, that intuition, that are not like right in front of what we see. So what I love about this week, actually, is the first several days are really very intuitive, deep, opening up those portal days. And so we step into that on Monday. On Tuesday, it, to me, is a bit amplified in the evening. Once we pass the friction of the picture of Moon square Venus in the early evening. But prior to that, the day of, we have this lovely kind of umbrella energy of Jupiter working with that moon in Libra that just says, oh, everything's good, let's connect. And I think that in these times where there's a lot of difficulty. I mean, the world is changing very quickly, and the United States election, which I am writing about and will continue to, and I'm still processing because of what this means going forward and how erratic, cataclysmic, revolutionary we can experience over the next couple of years. But what we're seeing is this sort of coalescing, coming together, this reevaluation our E word again, reevaluation. So with the Mercury retrograde and these several days, really encouraging us to sink into the juice of our intuition, our collaborative connections, our seeking the ponds and the harbors where we can restore and understand what is expected of us. And I think one of the things that is happening is that we are expected to really galvanize, spread our wings, and become more. We are to become more. It's not necessarily the default path or this looked like the easier path. This is overhaul time. So as we're entering, we're in it, overhaul time, the so important piece of it, which I speak about a lot when I do these forecasts, is to be aware of the go to the well time, to enter the harbor time, to do the points of reconnection, refreshment that are so essential to our ability to be galvanized, to be warriors of our spirit, of truth, of what we know to be the right steps forward. So Tuesday, excellent day for making those kind of connections and feeling like, wow, I'm getting a sense of how to proceed and what I need to let go of and what ideas I need to recycle or put into the earth and wait until the seed spreads differently, because the way I thought it was going to be, and this is another thing that just flew into my head, which often happens when I do this work, is that in the plant realm, in gardening, in encouraging things to grow, I should say, not making them grow, encouraging them to grow. There are many different ways of discovering what kind of soil does this need? What is it best grafted? Do I divide it? Do I grow it from seed? How do I encourage it to evolve and to become? And so what may initially seem the way over Monday into Tuesday, some of us may late afternoon, early evening feel like, I don't have the right soil. I don't have the right tools. I don't have the right support. The people aren't showing up that I thought were going to show up. And it's okay to just sit with that and observe it. But don't hold on to it, because it basically it's an adjustment. It's telling you, okay, this isn't working. All right, it's not working. So then we open up to what can work, what is possible. And as of about 7:15, 7:30, the Eastern time on the 26th, we're in this really nice zone of inviting in what's possible. And it's really, really an excellent time for the communications. Keeping in mind Mercury's retrograde, we may need to follow up on certain things, make sure what we thought we were sending isn't still in the draft folder, all those things that are really important with Mercury retrograde. Back up your files, etc., for people who are very computer oriented. But you want to go over everything that is already in process. What needs to be adjusted? Who do I need to reach out to? And this is an excellent evening to do that. And if you don't have clarity with it, then put your head on the pillow and turn it over to the dreamscape. Angels, higher power energy, these messages can come through our dreams. And also when you wake up, first thing in the morning on the 27th, invite in whatever that revelation or direction may be. The moon goes void of course at 3:06 a.m. on Wednesday the 27th, and then it enters the sign, 4:14 a.m. on the 27th. What happens at that 3:06 point is that lovely window of energy is passing, but we're still in that wonderful soup of dream energy and reinvention. And if you're on the other side of the world, you're awake and you're moving through it. So the moon enters Scorpio, but not until 7:21 p.m. So that is a very long, over 12 hours of time when the moon is void of course. And as you recall, what I said earlier is it's a good time to organize, see where you're at, recharge, enjoy the day in space, work on things already in motion, but avoid starting anything new or shaking hands in a gentle person's agreement that you're going to follow through with something, because you probably won't. If you're very charged by an idea, excited by something, a meeting you've had, then just say, let's not make any decisions now. Let's sleep on this and let's reconnect later in the day or tomorrow or even next week. Because we are, depending on what you celebrate and focus on, this is the evening before Thanksgiving Day in the United States, which is a very up in the air holiday for many people, because it's just looking at U.S. history, which some people don't want to do. The day is a confused message day. Nonetheless, it is a holiday, and so people use it in ways that ideally are about giving thanks. So the evening of Wednesday, the 27th, is kind of intense because we're looking at this. I mean, you may not be a person who thinks about this at all, but a lot of people just love the food. That's their whole thing, is the food and the getting together with friends and what they do with it. But if it is an evening where you're feeling a lot of sense of conflict or looking at things differently, and this can have nothing to do with the United States holiday of Thanksgiving, it can be a lot about, actually, the balancing of power. It can be different discussions people are having, discussions within yourself. It can be recognition of grief, which a lot of people are experiencing now, and also a sense of real extreme divisions. And so all those things can pile up. There are memes and a lot of things on social media about don't invite so-and-so on Thanksgiving, and the divisions among families and friends, especially in the United States, but actually even very globally, because the United States, being such a huge country, does have an effect of what it does, the decisions it makes, and it affects the rest of the world. However, it is a tremendous evening for taking stock of where the wounds are and why the wounds are. And where the wounds are gives us the ability to sink down and focus on that And then we want to look at why the wounds are, to know where they came from, but why are they still gushing and gaping? And then what is the antidote? And the thing about wounds and antidotes is that we can't get to the antidote until we're really in the where and the why. And then we have to make a decision on if we're willing to transform that wound. Because, as many of us know, our wounds are very familiar. We're very attached to our wounds. The ego feels it is part of who we are. And so to move through that and identify it differently, that's what starts to be the antidote. You don't forget the wound or transcend the wound. Well, maybe some people do. But I think the wound is also a tremendous bridge to allow us into true compassion and connection when we move through the wound to a point of not being the wound, not needing the wound for how we identify ourselves in an ego capacity. So it can be a very deep night for some of us. It's really important to be aware of that, take care of yourself. And if you're just cruising around in a nice space and you notice someone else is reactive or just seems to not be in as soft an energy space, then allow that person to be with what they need to be and help them midwife it if you choose to. You could also just say, hey, I don't have the bandwidth for this. I'm disengaging, because it's also important to take care of you. And I think it's a really profound evening for finding some space to do some prayer work, meditation work, energy work, to allow yourself that spirit connection. Because this moon in Scorpio is actually a deeper octave of whatever it was we felt open to in an intuition capacity earlier in the week. And then Thanksgiving Day, which some people in the States are calling Indigenous People Day, or a day to give thanks, or they're just ignoring it. However you're celebrating or in space on this day, look at the why of that in the morning. In the early morning, some of us may be sleeping through it depending on where we are. But some people can be very angry. Some people can feel like they need to move or just have a lot of bottled up energy. And so it's important to give yourself some nice release of that. Walk the dog, do exercise that's familiar to your body, nothing extreme. But how can you move through the power of what is popping up? Because when we're not really conscious or aware of what this, in my mind, fuel is that's surging through us, then it can come out wrong. We can snap at a spouse or a child or a pet and not really be aware of what is bubbling up within us. Some of us may, if we're sleeping, we may experience as one of those dreams that just kind of wakes us up with a jolt. And others may have, be in a nice Zen point and not really feel anything. But if you're around another person who suddenly is boiling over the top, just know that it's a transit, it's going to pass, and whatever release they need to do, ideally it's going to be graceful. Once that's done, and we have and the reason I called it fuel is because sometimes it's presenting us with something we're angry about or passionate about or feel a real sense of desire or awakening about. And so that is information that we can then take to a very structured, directed way. And today can be fabulous for putting that in a, well, I wouldn't say laser-like direction, but what I sense it's more like is a channel of light. So, yes, laser is a light, but this is more a softer, like a sunlight ray, or something that comes through and just can soften or change the vibration, what's happening. And so it can be a tremendous day for lightheartedness, for people feeling creative and connected and really, really touching in to a higher octave of love, a really wonderful expression of compassion, connection. And so I hope all of you are somewhere where you can allow that light in, that sharing of the highest vibration of connectivity. And if you're somewhere or you're feeling a throb or a tone that is just pulling you down, then if you can't shift that vibration, you might want to remove yourself from it, because it's very much about increasing or toning up to whatever's around. Think about when you've got a chorus or people are working on singing, not my strength, I must say, singing, but, or a tone, working in tone, and it's atonal for a while, it's not quite in the place it needs to be, someone hits a note that's really jarring, and then suddenly there's this wonderful vibration that just feels delicious. And so that's obtainable on this day and actually into the 29th. And we get there by making conscious decisions of where we're not going to go, what we're not going to hold on to, and how we're going to move into the flow instead of the pushing against. And when we do that, we're inviting in a lot of grace over these couple of days. There can be a disruption, a sudden sort of shake that happens in the early evening on the 29th. But if you're in kind of a safe zone, if you've created a nice vibration for yourself, it can actually be more of a revelation, epiphany, sort of wake-up thing that then brings you into another adjustment of even sweeter music. So the moon goes void of course at 1:19 a.m. on Saturday the 30th, and it enters Sagittarius at 6:53 a.m. And then this starts to head towards the new moon, which is exact at 1:21 a.m. on Sunday the 1st. I'm going to talk more in depth about that new moon on the separate recording meditation I'm going to do. And I am thinking of starting to do those live for people who can come in and experience that. So keep alert to what I might send out over this week, or if you're really interested in that, send me a note and we'll see if that can happen. But basically that new moon in Sag is really pushing us to allow in the numinous and expectation and to move past senses of victimization or feeling unable to. So we want to use that new moon energy. We're in the dark of moon on Saturday. So if you're feeling any resistance to letting that new moon in and really allowing you to open into potential, then use that time to work on releasing that sense of, impotence, not being able to move forward. And just let it release. Just say, I'm moving past the sense that it's not enough, that it can't be accomplished. I'm moving past that. I'm going to release anything that's in my way of allowing me a sense that I am more than I know. And once the new moon has happened, ignited at 1:21 a.m. on Sunday the 1st, then we continue to allow that sense of how we open up to it. It may feel kind of challenging in the early morning for some of us, and we may feel a bit overwhelmed on this day. But as we get to the late afternoon, early evening, more and more, please give yourself some meditation, refresh, recharge time, and you can move in to a greater sense of becoming as you continue to allow yourself to release anything that feels too much, too heavy, too impossible. Just let it ride by you. Let it release, release, release. You have been listening to Astrology Insight Now. Please share with your friends, and if you'd like to make a donation, you can do so at astrologyinsightnow.com. Have a stellar week, and we hope to see you next time.